At this moment, Hera was utterly terrified. The instant she saw Dustin effortlessly neutralize her attack, the idea of retreat had already taken root in her mind. Her instincts screamed that Dustin was not someone to be trifled with. He was an extremely dangerous individual, but she still clung to a sliver of hope. With Zeus present, she believed that the two of them, working together, might still stand a chance at victory. However, now, after witnessing Zeus suffer a devastating blow and lose an arm in a single strike, she was completely thrown into panic. Her own strength was noticeably weaker than Zeus's. If even Zeus couldn't withstand one sword strike from Dustin, then she would fare even worse. So, the moment she saw Dustin raise his hand again, Hera didn't hesitate in the slightest. With a tap of her foot, she shot into the air like a spring-loaded shadow, turning into a blur as she fled toward the distant sky. At this point, her only goal was to survive. As for whether Zeus lived or died, that no longer had anything to do with her. Dustin had now stepped into the realm of a terrestrial immortal. Unless the Hall Master personally intervened, there was no one in the entire pantheon who could oppose him. "Do you think you can run?" Dustin chuckled softly. Raising one hand above his head, he suddenly pressed it down forcefully. Whum! A deafening boom shook the heavens. From above the clouds, a colossal golden palm descended, crashing down like a mountain upon the fleeing Hera. The golden palm was so massive it dwarfed mountains. As it appeared, it obscured the sky and sun, darkening the heavens. Compared to the giant palm, Hera was like an ant under Mount Tai. Ah! Staring at the enormous golden hand pressing down from above, Hera's face twisted in horror, her soul trembling. Even as she unleashed all her power, she couldn't escape its grasp. With a piercing scream, Hera was caught midair by the golden palm. Then nothing. Moments later, the golden palm vanished. Hera's broken body plummeted from the sky, landing hard at the entrance of the ancient temple. All her meridians were severed, her bones shattered, and blood streamed from her mouth and nose. She was barely clinging to life. Though she hadn't yet died, she had only a single breath left to her name. This was a deliberate choice by Dustin. Had he wished, the golden palm alone could have pulverized her into dust. But even surviving like this, she was barely better off. As the guards and monks at the temple gate looked upon the corpse-like Hera, their faces turned pale with shock. They didn't know what had happened inside. All they heard were constant explosions and felt waves of overwhelming pressure that made it hard to even approach. Then, when everything fell silent, Hera suddenly flew into the sky, fleeing with all her might, only for a golden palm to pierce the clouds the next moment, effortlessly seizing her. By the time she hit the ground, she was half dead, unable to move a single finger. Could this be the work of one of the Imperial Observatory's peerless powerhouses? Otherwise, how could someone so easily destroy a divine king like Hera? Thinking this, a surge of excitement filled everyone's hearts. Perhaps they were saved. Inside the temple, after dealing with Hera, Dustin turned his gaze to Zeus, who stood dozens of meters away. Zeus had lost an arm, his face was pale, and blood streamed from his nose and mouth. Though not as critical as Hera, he was still severely injured. How is this possible? How did you become this powerful? Zeus gritted his teeth, equal parts shocked and enraged. He had expected Dustin to break through, but he still couldn't accept the reality after personally experiencing this overwhelming strength. Just days ago, Dustin had still been at the ultimate Grandmaster level. He hadn't even reached perfection. And now? Had it even been 7 or 10 days? In less than 10 days, someone who hadn't even perfected their ultimate Grandmaster realm had suddenly become a terrestrial immortal, a peerless powerhouse. Zeus couldn't comprehend it. And he certainly couldn't accept it. He had been stuck at the peak of the ultimate Grandmaster realm for decades. So why could this brat reach that level in less than a month when all of his decades of hard work had failed? What the hell happened? Powerful? I paid for it with my life. Dustin replied calmly, a faint smile on his lips. In truth, when he broke through, he had nearly lost his body and his life. But in the nick of time, a powerful force of vitality suddenly surged within him, pulling him back from the brink. With that vitality, and the aid of the dragon source energy, he had managed to break through. It wasn't just daring to risk his life. It was also timing, opportunity, and fate. Maybe this was the great fortune Margaret had spoken of. I refuse to accept this. I won't accept it. Why could you break through? Why couldn't I? Zeus roared, nearly hysterical. He already knew how this would end. Even in his prime, he wouldn't have stood a chance against Dustin, let alone now, after being grievously wounded. Hera's failed escape was proof enough. The truth was simple: he was going to die, and before he did, all he could do was vent. Maybe because you're uglier than me, Dustin said with a straight face. You brat! I'll die with you! Zeus roared and charged forward, becoming a blur as he threw himself at Dustin. Dustin calmly raised one hand, and with a casual grasp through the air, Zeus was immediately frozen in midair, unable to move. Then Dustin tilted his head and looked at Margaret, asking evenly, Life or death? Death, Margaret replied coldly, spitting out the word like ice. All right. Dustin nodded, and his fingers clenched tightly. Boom! With an explosive pop, Zeus's body burst like an overinflated balloon, shattering on the spot. Not a single piece of his corpse remained.
And just can't accept it. This can't be the end yet. You promised to never leave, and now you're gone. Can't believe I can feel the world slipping away as you slowly fade from my everyday. You promised forever a love without end, but now I'm left broken, struggling to mend. I thought we were so tied, destined for a lifetime, love with no end, love with no end. Staying in my imagination, memorizing the past time, the secrets, the love, the care, now they're echoes in the air. I still see your face in every place, feel your warmth, your gentle grace, but now there's just an empty space, and I'm lost in this endless chase. Keeping you in my heart, a piece of you I'll never let go. Though distance brings